Okay, wonderful. Welcome back. I just love that music. Anybody else enjoying that music? It's nice, eh? Yeah, it's cool. Well, anybody care to share how did you guys find that experience? Was it worthwhile? Was it helpful? Can you guys see how something like that might be beneficial? Or do you guys think that was a bunch of rubbish? You can be honest. It won't hurt my feelings. I got thick skin. Jamie?
I've been working with my emotions a lot this year and try not to get emotional. I found it's very helpful. So lots of pain, lots of awareness, and lots of it are stemming from lots and connected as well. So no, I'm enjoying it, even though it's showing that I'm not.
I get it. Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, Candace.
I don't know. Can you hear me? I can't tell if my. Okay, great. Even when I was writing down my limiting beliefs, I was like, is this even true? And so I was instantly, every time I wrote a belief, and I thought, well, isn't that convenient that I hold on to that truth? And what does that truth serve? And so I found myself almost laughing through some of this because when you write it down, you're really confronted with, this is just the stuff I tell myself to get myself through the day. And anyway, so it was powerful. I appreciate that.
That's a great insight. Thanks, Candace. Yeah. Well, like I said, that was the first clearing exercise, the first of 4. Okay. Now, this is part 2. We're going to call Forgive to Be Free. Okay. And the next 2 exercises are, well, I'm not going to lie to you, probably 2 of the most difficult and painful things that I've done in recent years, but also simultaneously 2 of the most rewarding things that I've done in recent years. Okay. And just by a show of hands here, who here has ever been, either experienced either physical, mental, or emotional pain at the hands of another human being? Maybe even a loved one or someone close to us. You guys have been hurt, or pained, or experienced some wound of some type? Yeah. Well, just by a show of hands here, who here has ever hurt another human being, either mentally, emotionally, or perhaps physically? Right. You don't get to this point in our life without experiencing both ends of that. And I've found that holding on to those types of actions, those types of activities, those kinds of wounds over time can lead to things, like I said before, like, depression, addiction, disease, harboring that hurt or those hurt feelings, that anger, those resentments over time doesn't lead to anything positive. And in my experience, learning to find forgiveness, and specifically forgiving ourselves, learning to forgive ourselves, is some of the most healing and helpful things that we can do. And allows us to experience acceptance, joy, peace of mind, happiness, fulfillment. Okay. But forgiveness is like, that's another one of those, like, strangely odd and elusive words. And I'll be the first to admit that for the largest majority of my adult life, I had no idea what forgiveness even meant. I knew the word. I mean, everybody's familiar with the word, but if you ask me, well, like, what's forgiveness mean to you? Like, I have no idea. and forget about forgiving. Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea what that person did or how that person made me feel or the damage that happened? I'm not forgiving them. Are you nuts? Never. It's not an easy thing to do. Out of curiosity here, what does forgiveness mean to you? Does anybody would anybody care to share what forgiveness means to them? Yeah, Leah.
Forgiveness, in my opinion, is not an emotion. It's a choice. And I think it's an active choice until the emotion catches up. It's like you have to actively choose to forgive until one day your emotion's like, oh yeah, I actually feel that. But frankly, I think forgiveness releases you from the bitterness that seeks to destroy your inner world. It actually has nothing to do with the other party. That's been my personal experience with it.
I love that. Yeah. Thanks, Leah. Yeah. Candace.
I often think about it as something very physical. It's like taking back prime real estate, right? There's only so much of me that I have. And by holding on to something, that means I am holding back from loving my children, my spouse, that kind of thing. So it's taking back real estate that's owning in my heart or in my soul.
I like that. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Thanks, Candace. Yeah, like I said, forgiveness is one of those things that for the longest time I had no idea what it meant. I thought that in order to forgive, you needed to kind of pardon the perpetrator, or that they needed to apologize, or that it had to come from a sincere place. You guys ever get an apology from somebody and it's like, no, that's not good enough, try again. What I've learned is that forgiveness for me is a conscious decision. A conscious decision to let go of that emotion or to let go of that wound. Now, it doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean, it doesn't even mean like permitting that type of behavior in the future. For me, forgiveness is all about accepting what is, or accepting what happened. I'm fascinated by the Buddhist philosophy. And a lot of times people think that Buddhism is a religion. And I don't think that it is. I think Buddhism is a practice very similar to like yoga. And I've heard people say that Buddhism makes Christians a better Christian. And that it actually is a state of mind, or it's a practice in letting go. They practice non-attachment and acceptance. And one of the teachings that Buddhists talk about is that resistance to what is will always result in pain. And that freedom comes with accepting what is. And that doesn't mean, like I said, that it doesn't mean that we need to say that it was right. Just accept that what happened allows you to move forward and move on. And I think sometimes one of the biggest things that comes up for me is the understanding that oftentimes it's hurt people that hurt people. You guys have probably heard that before. It's hurt people hurt other people. And in my experience, I realized that, so oftentimes behind that mask of anger is somebody who's in pain, a little boy or a girl that's hurting themselves. And when I look past that anger, and when I look past that action, and I see the person as somebody who's experiencing pain or hurt themselves, it lends itself for me to begin to feel compassion for the other individual, to see them not as the perpetrator, but as the person behind that mask. Now, I think oftentimes I think oftentimes some of the most pain comes from people closest to us. And in my experience, you know, I think about some of the pain that I experience at like the hands of my dad, for instance. And when I know and can understand that part of that was his response to his child or his upbringing, and I can begin to see some understanding there or compassion, knowing that he was probably just doing the best that he could while dealing with the pain and the trauma of his childhood, that I can learn to let some of that go and not take it so personally. But I'll take it even one step further. And I know that if I had the dad that I wanted growing up, that I might not be the man that I am today. And I might not be the father that I am today. And so in a real like warped way, I can maybe even be thankful and appreciative and grateful for the experiences that I had, because it helped me become a better man and a better father. And I recognize that that's not something that everybody might agree with or understand, but that's been my experience. And like I said, I'm not a trained expert at this, but I'll share with you my experience in hopes that some of you might be able to relate this to your own situation and maybe gain some of the things that I've gained through this process too, as far as letting go and finding forgiveness. Okay. Now, you know, like it was already mentioned here, that forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. Forgiveness has nothing to do with them. Forgiveness isn't about, you know, permitting or allowing that type of behavior to continue. It's not suggesting or saying that it's acceptable or that it's right. Okay. You don't even need the other person to still be alive or to apologize in order to find forgiveness. That forgiveness is a conscious decision, and sometimes it's one that you need to revisit over and over again, in choosing to let that go. You know, forgiveness is about letting go of the grasp that that person has on you and the control that they have over your mental and emotional well-being, your mental and emotional states. Okay. Now, I'm often reminded of, like I said, I really admire and like enjoy the Buddhist teachings. And there's one that comes to mind about two Buddhist monks. Two Buddhist monks are walking down a path and they come to a river. And this woman is standing beside the river and she's looking to cross. And the one Buddhist monk says, "Here, hop on, I'll carry you across the river." And so he picks up this woman and he carries her across the stream. And then they get to the other side and he puts her down and the woman goes her way and says, "Thank you very much." And the two Buddhist monks continue walking. And about an hour goes by and the young Buddhist monk turns to the old Buddhist monk and he says, "You know what? That really bothers me. You know, we swore when we joined the monastery that we were going to, that we would not have any physical contact with a woman. And you picked up that woman and carried her back there. I don't like the way that you did that." And the old Buddhist monk turns to the young monk and he says, "Well, young monk," he says, "I put that woman down an hour ago. You're still carrying that woman." And I think, how often does that happen in our own lives where we're holding on to that and carrying that weight with us from either an action or words that were spoken to us months ago, years ago, maybe even decades ago. you know. So our next little clearing exercise here, what I'd like you guys to do here is start a fresh piece of paper. Okay. And I want you to draw a line down the center of it. Okay. So you got a fresh piece of paper, and I want you guys to draw a line down the center of it. And on the one hand, on the left side of it, I want you guys to write down the names of anybody who has hurt you, wounded you, offended you, or caused you pain, or that you hold or harbor pain and resentment, anger and resentment towards. Okay? Write down on the left side people from your past who have caused you pain or that you harbor anger or resentment towards. And on the right hand side, I want you to write down what that person did to you, what that person said, or what that person did. Okay. I'm going to put on some music here. And again, I'll give you guys about 5 minutes to do this. Okay. Okay, welcome back. So was everybody able to come down or come up with a list of a few people they could write down that caused some pain or some anger or resentment towards, and people recall some people that maybe hurt them or harmed them in the past? Yeah. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Okay. We all have a list of people, or likely able to recall a list of people who have harmed us in the past. Okay. Now, the next step is to close your eyes, and we don't have to do this right now necessarily, but close your eyes and imagine having a conversation with this person and explaining to them how their actions harmed you, so that you're able to express that, you're able to feel that, and you're able to let it out. But then the most important part is to consider sharing with this person a simple phrase. And you can maybe write this down if you want to, but something to the effects of, I now forgive you and I release you to be happy and to go your own way. I now forgive you and I release you to be happy and to go your own way. Now, again, I want to stress this. This is likely a conversation that you want to have in your mind and in your imagination. I'm going to say just bluntly, most people aren't in a position where if you confronted them to share the harm that they've caused, would they be in a position where they're either mature enough or humble enough where they might be able to listen to understand? Oftentimes people jump to the defense, defend their actions, and then they have a list of reasons why they behaved a certain way. This doesn't have anything to do with them. This is about you making a conscious decision to let that go and let that person go and let their grip loosen on you. Okay. And the next phase of that, one that we've talked about in the past, but that's consider sending this person love. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I really truly think that as human beings, we all want basically the same few things. We maybe even need, not want, we need to be seen. We need to be heard. We need to be understood. And we need to be accepted for who we are. And I think that if we can develop the habit of sending people the same things that every human being wants, love and acceptance, it's actually a very freeing exercise. Now, if this is the first time you've tried something like this, I'd say maybe start small. Start with somebody who just mildly irritates you. Start with somebody who, their infraction wasn't something that like crippled you or destroyed you. Start small. And as you become more comfortable with this practice or this exercise, you can build up to some of these people who whose harm has done more damage with you. Okay. So again, the idea is you want to write down the name of the people who have harmed you and what they did to cause that harm. And then to go back and have a conversation in your mind where you consciously choose to forgive that person, let them go, and wish them well. Okay. And again, this is the kind of thing that people may come to mind in the coming hours or the coming days or the coming weeks that you might want to write down, revisit, and repeat this exercise as you go. And then the last part of that exercise, again, burn that paper. Again, this isn't for anybody to see. This isn't for anybody else. This isn't a conversation that you need to have verbally or physically with anybody. This is just for you. Okay. So, any questions there? Any comments? Anything come up for anybody? And we care to share anything? Again, like no pressure. Don't feel like you need to, but Candace.
Had a weird little aha because going into this exercise, I rattled off the top three offenders, and I was saving one because I knew I had a lot to put on the other side of the column about this individual. Something really weird happened. I couldn't remember her name. And this was somebody for, I bet you, 15 years we fought, we battled, we competed, like, and I couldn't stand her. She couldn't stand me. I don't know what happened, but I could not remember her name. I had struggled and struggled. And then all of a sudden, all the things on the other side of the list, like I couldn't remember what they were. So obviously I have walked away from that, and I walked away from what that means to be, and it doesn't really hold any weight with me anymore. And I thought it was just going to come flying, and it didn't. But anyway, so thank you. That was a cool exercise. I wouldn't have come to that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Awesome, Candace. Anybody else? Leah?
Mine was the opposite, where I thought that I worked through a bunch of stuff. So I was like, I don't really, like, it's fine. And then I wrote down a name, and then I haven't stopped writing things down.
So this is one that maybe you could spend more time with.
Yeah.
You know, they say that like time heals all wounds, but I don't think that that's true. And in my experience, like, you know, unless you actually, like I said, dig in there, pull it out, you know, and discard it, it doesn't heal by itself.
Doesn't time just give you the opportunity to have a little bit of space from the actual physical pain of it so that you can do the work? Right. I hate that sentence, time heals all wounds. It's the most bullshit sentence I've ever heard. Sorry, it actually aggravates me.
It's okay, it's good.
It completely disregards anybody's actual need to be accountable for anything in their life. So that's my...
It's good. Anybody else? Anybody else have any questions or comments about that exercise form? Tamara?
Mine was people that hurt me because I first hurt them, which was because it was like, as I was writing on the other column, I put the name, and then it's like me, do it, you know, ... me, ... and I'm like, I know I was part of the problem, and I have to clear my side of the street for that, and know that I probably caused it. But yeah, so that was kind of hard to swallow.
That's actually probably a really good observation. And you know, the truth is that I was sharing with a client a couple of weeks ago that, you know, I've experienced something very similar where we harbor hurt feelings or resentment towards people. But if we stop and we ask ourselves a question like, well, where have I done something similar to that in the past? I think oftentimes we find that maybe we haven't done exactly the same thing, but we've been guilty of similar things to other people, and we're not innocent either. I think so oftentimes we judge the actions of others, and we're a lot more, there's a phrase to summarize this, I'm not going to get this correct, but we judge the actions of others based on the outcome, right? But we judge our actions based on our intent. And to illustrate that point, like I had a conversation, a call date with Anna's stepdad. This guy that I've gotten into, you know, having kind of a relationship with. He's a good guy and a bit of a mentor of mine. And for the last like 3 calls in a row, he stood me up where we had a time specified, and he no-showed on me. And I was kind of like getting angry and resentful about it. And then I also had a call date with Anna's grandpa a couple of weeks ago. And we kind of keep in touch every once in a while. He sends me birthday cards. He's a sweet old man. And I forgot to call him. And then he messaged me the next day and said, "Hey, I missed your call." And then I forgot to call him again. And then a week or two went by before I actually picked up the phone, and I realized, I was letting myself off the hook, and I was forgiving, I was like, wow, I was busy and I just forgot, it slipped my mind. But I did the exact same thing that I was upset about with Anna's stepdad. And I was angry and resentful towards him. But I was like, well, I didn't mean to, I just simply forgot. And I think oftentimes lends itself to compassion and understanding towards others when we acknowledge that, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, in my experience anyway. So again, this step is about identifying who those people might be, what they did, having a conversation in your mind and in your imagination about letting that person go, releasing their grip on you. And then if you felt it necessary to like burn that piece of paper as a symbol of letting that go when you're done. Okay. Now, the third clearing activity, or the third clearing exercise here, is one that really surprised me. Okay. Now, if you guys have a notepad in front of you, I want you guys to start a fresh piece of paper, a fresh page, and do the same thing. Draw a line down the center of it. Okay. But a question for you, just by a show of hands here, who has ever said or done anything that they wish that they could take back or regret? Pretty much everyone, right? So what I'd like us to do here is to write down a list of people that we've caused harm to, or that we've offended, or people that we've hurt, either with our actions or with our words. Now, this one really surprised me. And before we do this exercise, I want to explain something. This one really surprised me. And the reason is because, I guess I have a belief that, I'm a pretty kind person. I'm not perfect, but I'm fairly kind and friendly. And I didn't think that I had many people that I would write down as far as this list went. Okay. And I didn't take much time with it at first. But the more time that I spent with it, the more that I realized that there were a lot of people, especially from my past, that I had done wrong by. And back in my 20s, I kind of left a wake of destruction behind me, and I got fired from jobs, and I, bailed on roommates, and I did shitty stuff. And I thought that the solution to that was, well, this place is a mess. I'm going to pick up and I'm move to Edmonton. I'll have a fresh start over, clean page. And so I started over in Edmonton. Okay. But what happened was I never did any of the work on me. So it wasn't long before I just recreated the same shitstorm, but in a different city. And when things got so bad there, I ran again and I came back to Saskatoon. And this time though, I was back in my old territory. And I noticed something really interesting happen. When I walk into a restaurant or into a business or something like that, I was out in public, I kind of had my head on a swivel, where I was constantly caught myself looking around to see, well, who else was here? And am I going to bump into somebody that maybe I'll be embarrassed to see, or maybe somebody that I misbehaved towards? And there's a little test that I want to share with you, a little tool that I want to share with you. And it's called the acid test. You know how, if you guys have ever been to like a pool or a hot tub, and those little like pH testers, these are little pieces of paper, and you stick it in the pool and you take it out and it gives you a reading as to what the pH level is. It's kind of like that. Okay. But the acid test is your emotional response when you see another person or when you hear their name. Your emotional response. Remember, your emotions, they're not good or bad. There are no such thing as good emotions and bad emotions. They're all helpful. But your emotions are like the indicator lights on your car. They're trying to tell you something. And if an image comes up or a picture comes up of another person, and you get that queasy feeling, or you like, you know, or there's that feeling of like angst or anxiety, or like you don't want to see them or you're embarrassed, that should tell you something. And I used that acid test to kind of go through a Rolodex of people and hold that up to it and be like, okay, well, and social media is good for this because you kind of got all your friends in one place or something. But, you know, maybe you got like a, I don't know, black book with names and addresses. I don't know. But go through that, revisit this, look at and think of different people from your past. And when I did that, I actually had a much longer list than I would have thought. Some of the people I had said something or done something like 20 years ago. And when I thought of them, I got that little twinge in my gut that tells me, yeah, you know what? There's something unresolved there. I'm embarrassed about this, or I wish that I could take that back. And so I captured that person's name and wrote down what I had done or what I had said to that person. Okay. So we're going to take again about 5 minutes here, and we're just going to do this little exercise real quick. So on the one side, the person who maybe you've caused harm to, and on the other side, what it was that you said or did. Okay. Oh yeah, press play here. Come on, man. Okay. Was everybody able to come up with a few things that either people or circumstances where maybe they were in the wrong? Maybe more than a few. Yeah. Well, this was one of the most difficult parts of this, and this was one of the hardest, and that was to kind of face some of those things. I think sometimes people structure their whole lives to avoid having to face or actually deal with either some of the pain that other people have caused them or some of the pain that they've caused others or even themselves. You know, and I look back to that vibrational analysis chart talking about the low vibration energies like shame and guilt and regret. And those are some of the lowest on the spectrum. You know, and I find that, you know, setting and protecting my mental and emotional state is one of my number one priorities, because everything stems from that. All of my relationships, all of my conversations, all of my interactions with others stem from that place. You know, and now that you've got a list of some people and places or things that you've done and maybe you wish you could take back or maybe wish you hadn't done, the next step would be to one of two things. Okay. Either again, imagine a conversation in your mind where you take responsibility, you take ownership for what you did or what occurred. Okay. Where you take responsibility, you take ownership of it. And then forgive yourself for behaving or acting that way. Okay. Now, I find that so oftentimes the biggest benefit came from me finding forgiveness, not in forgiving others, but in forgiving myself for the things that I had said and the things that I had done. I was holding on to a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. And when I acknowledged the fact that, you know what, I'm just a human being. I'm a human being. And by nature, I'm going to make mistakes. By nature, I'm going to learn the hard way what not to do. That I could not absolve myself of responsibility, take responsibility, but acknowledge that, hey, I screwed up and apologize for that. Now, again, this is a conversation that one you could have in your mind, but I found it to be extremely rewarding to actually pick up the phone or meet an individual in person. Was it hard? Oh, fuck, you better believe it. Was my hand like shaking as I was like dialing numbers? Oh yeah. Are you kidding me? It's one of the most terrifying things I've ever done in my life. Just message a person and say, hey, I got to talk to you about something. Are you free for a call? Are you free for a conversation? Wondering if that person would even respond to me. Wondering if they'd even give me the time of day. And something really interesting happened. In some cases, I reached out to people that I hadn't talked to in 20 years. I don't feel like I'm old enough to be able to say that, but turns out I am. But there are some cases of people that I hadn't talked to in 20 years. I get them on the phone and I'd explain to them what I was doing and why. And then I'd apologize for what I had said or what I had done and say, look, I don't need anything from you. I'm not asking for you to say anything here. I just want you to know that I'm sorry for the way that I behaved. I'm sorry for the way that I treated you. You deserve better. It was terrible and beautiful all at the same time. And it was really interesting. I had some people, well, some people didn't respond to me. I had some people who just never replied, and that's okay. I had other people who said to me, Matt, I hadn't even thought about that in 20 years. You've been carrying that around this entire time. Yeah, that's been on my mind. It's been on my guilty conscience since then. And then, I don't even remember when you said that, but hey man, we're cool. We're good. You can let it go. Was that ever freeing? You know, and again, I think that this is about not necessarily getting their forgiveness, but about learning to face what you did and forgive yourself for making mistakes. Because we all do them. I don't care who you are, everybody. And the more that we're able to do that, the more we're able to accept ourselves for who we really truly are. And the more that we're able to love ourselves, the more we're able to experience feelings like joy and fulfillment and happiness. And then again, once you've got that list, you could light that baby up too. And let that blow away in the wind. I drove out to a little place. I did this in Saskatoon. I drove out to a little place near the river and found a little clearing there, and sat there and I lit that baby up, watched it burn, and then just I sat there for a few minutes in that newfound sense of calm and relief, and just tried my best to soak it all in. The interesting thing is that people kind of continually come to mind since then, different things, and I found it so rewarding at the time that I'll actually do my best to redo this exercise over and over again. Now, again, this can be very painful and can be very difficult, but it's also, I think, one of the biggest things that facilitates that healing process and allows you to actually move past it. So I don't have any expectations or need for anybody to, follow through on this. This isn't for me or for anybody else. This is something you might want to consider doing for you. Okay. And I know we're running a little bit over time here, but did anybody care to share any thoughts on that, or any questions about that? No pressure. You guys think something like this could be helpful? Yeah. Well, I know it's a bit of a somber mood right now, but I saved one activity for the end. Okay. And this one's a little easier and a little bit more fun. Okay. And the third, I guess it would be the fourth clearing exercise that I'd ask you guys to do or suggest doing is to pick a room in your house, whether it's your closet, your kitchen, your storage room, or your garage, and purge yourself of all of the like unused, unnecessary things that you're holding on to that you don't need anymore. I oftentimes think of like our physical environment as an extension of ourselves. And when we purge our environment, or when we clean and tidy our space, our physical space, it does wonders for changing the way that we think and changing the way that we feel. I often say that a cluttered workspace is a cluttered mind. And the same is true for our garage or storage room, or, our car for that matter. And that taking some time over the next, few days or few weeks to pick a room and to discard, give away, sell, or donate some unused items might be really rewarding for you, and it might be really rewarding to some other people who might use it or need it.
Hey, Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the screen has gone blank and the phone's been cutting in and out. So I don't know if that's happened for anybody else.
Looks like maybe it's just on your screen, Leah. Sorry.
That's okay. Oh yeah, it's okay. That's fine.
If you need me to repeat any of that, or if you missed any part of that, just shoot me a message and I can try to articulate that again. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, any questions about any of this, you guys, or any comments?
I'm really feeling like I'm not very self-aware. So the last exercise where we had to write down what we did, or, you know, like aside from the quick couple of obvious ones, I can't, like, I'm feeling really embarrassed and ashamed that I feel like I can't think of those things as easily as who hurt me, right? And so it's making me feel like I'm not self-aware, which is not a goal I have for myself. So I'm not sure if anybody else is struggling with that, but I'm wondering, I don't know, I'm just confused.
Yeah, that's okay. You know, to be honest with you, I'll be the first to admit that I probably felt something similar. And I think that it's part of maybe the human condition, where it's easier to remember and recall instances where we were harmed rather than where we harmed others. But maybe this is the kind of thing that's just worth pondering and thinking about for a little while to see what comes up. And maybe, like I said, going back through your Rolodex or through your, you know, your phone, your contact list, or your Facebook feed and that sort of thing, and using your emotions as an indication of maybe where you've done wrong or where you've said things or done things that maybe you were embarrassed about. And maybe there's just not a whole lot there. You know, I know that some people spend a lot of time with this one, and they really struggle with it because they've got a long history of hurting others.
So one of the things that I recognized was that there was someone who ghosted me several times, a good friend of mine. I'd call her a best friend, but it happened 3 times. And by the third, I just, and so on this end, I'm going over what I had done. Or like, is it even me? Right?
Yeah.
What did I do to make her, you know, just ditch me that fast? Trying to sort out if that was something that I did. Yeah. I guess I don't ever intentionally try to hurt, like I don't ever hurt anybody. Like I think unless it's an accident, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out if that was my fault or if that was just her stuff that I don't have to be accountable for.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. And I think, you know, like Jamie mentioned in the chat that, you know, chances are that you've got a kind heart and your intentions are good. You know, maybe you've, you know, wronged people unintentionally in the past, but maybe there's just you know, it's hard to come up with some of those ideas or people. But in the situation of your friend, I don't know who that is you're speaking about personally, but I think in some instances like that, you know, what comes to mind is Don Miguel's 4 agreements, which is start to get into the habit of not taking things personally. And when other people act that way or behave that way towards you, oftentimes it has less to do with you than it does with them and where they're at during that time. Same as like getting honked at on the street.
Yeah.
You know, like somebody might lay on the horn and flip you off or give you the finger, where another person might wave you in and tell you, hey, go ahead, go in front of me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It has less to do with you necessarily, maybe more to do with them. But I don't know this person, so, but that's what comes to mind.
Okay. Thanks.
Leah?
Yeah, I kept coming back to the hurt people. And when I was writing my list of the hurt people, like of the people who hurt me, I was still just stuck on one person. And there's like a wild list of things. But in the list of the people that I've hurt, the list in is shamefully long. And I realized that the things that I've done are things that are learned behaviors from my childhood for the person that was so close to me that did those things. And it's like I look at the list of all of the ways that I've hurt people and I'm like, oh, this is all just insane learned behavior. And it's not active. It's not like I'm actively going out there wanting to hurt people. But when I look at how things have fallen apart or I've fallen short, I'm like, holy, it's like this bizarro coping. That was more enlightened in my own head. I don't know if I did a good job of explaining it.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, Leah. And you're right, that so oftentimes those things are learned behaviors, aren't they? And that's like our unconscious programming from childhood, when maybe we don't even realize that we're doing it at the time, but
Yeah.
that's our upbringing and the way the behavior that we modeled or that was modeled for us, and in some cases we just go on to perpetuate that same pain towards others. And I think that's part and part what I was meaning about, finding forgiveness and acceptance and understanding and compassion with my dad, was knowing that part of that was due to his upbringing and the things that he experienced as a young kid. So I want to thank each and every one of you guys for having the courage to participate in something like this. This is not an easy endeavor. And like I said at the beginning, the fact that you guys are here says a lot about you, says a lot about your strength, and says a lot about your character and your willingness to grow. And the truth is, true growth usually comes with some growing pains. And I said at the beginning that, this is the beginning of a process and something that's not likely to be done in a 2-hour session. Depending on the nature of what comes up for you, you may want to seek out support from a counselor or a therapist. Okay. You may want to revisit this exercise or spend some time thinking about it. Okay. And I don't want to leave anybody high and dry and dig up a whole bunch of stuff and then say, see ya. So if anybody wants to connect over the next few hours or few days or few weeks, one-on-one, to revisit or discuss or have questions or concerns, I'll make myself available. Again, I'm not a professional at this. I'm not an expert, but I will listen. Is that fair? Cool. Well, I appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the day and enjoy the rest of the holiday. And you know what? I'm proud of you. Proud of you for doing this. I'm proud of you for being here. I'm proud of you for facing some of this. And I want to leave you with a thought, and that's that someone once told me that there's nothing inside of you that can hurt you. It's just you. And that facing the things that exist inside of us might hurt temporarily, but it's only a part of us. And it's by bringing that to the surface, like acknowledging and accepting it, only helps us heal and grow. So whatever comes up for you, acknowledge it, accept it, embrace it. I respect you guys and I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks so much.